Oh, I was wondering when you were going to join the stream. By the way, do you have like a nickname? Because my Chinese is pretty bad and I do not know how to pronounce that. So, Rai or Rui? Rui. Okay, cool. Thank you. Because I know Sharky is Sharky. Everyone knows Sharky is Sharky. Um, Sharky and Rui. Thanks for joining, by the way. It's starting to get a little bit lonely in here. So Friday night, everyone's probably partying, not in the mood for crypto because of the week we've all had. To be fair, it's probably quite late for Sharky. I can't remember where he is, but it's probably like 3 a.m. or something. Okay, yeah, it's pretty late. It's pretty late. Yeah, luckily here in the UK, it's only 6:46, although for me it feels like it's midnight because it's been a really long week. But anyway, I'll stop banging on about my life. Um, right. So yeah, I mean, it might just be me and you. We'll see if anyone else joins. I told the guys in the chat that I will upload this later. I'm so behind. I need to upload the past two that I've done. I've just been so busy, but I'm gonna promise myself that I'm gonna upload them today. Um, all right, let's get started then. So, yeah, so let's start with Bitcoin. So, I mean, it's been a crazy week, right? Absolute crazy week. Um, I'm gonna start off on the weekly time frame. So, I think I spoke about this last week, which is why I probably need to upload the stream. Um, there was this trend line, this pink, dark pink diagonal trend line that we did break. We've obviously been bouncing off of this trend line since COVID. That's when we made that low around $4,000. And I think it was a bit risky to try and long anything, I ain't gonna lie, because last week we did have a weekly candle closure outside of that trend line. So we closed obviously at 77K. Um, which was probably an indication to not long anything, and it would have been a really good time to short. Um, I was probably being a little bit too optimistic that maybe we would have a deviation. To be honest, we may still have a deviation. Um, I mean, Bitcoin has pretty much almost played this out perfectly if we were to look at this as an ABC structure, i.e., A wave down, B wave. B wave was quite weak though. I think we only got up to the 38.2 fib and then C wave down. And traditionally, the A wave and the C wave are the same length. So if we measure that, that's the A wave. Take it to the top of the B wave. Yeah, you can see the C wave just kind of wicked a little bit lower than the A wave length. But I mean, to be honest, this is a positive recovery. If you look at this wick, um, to be honest, I think if we close the weekly like this, I wouldn't call it a loss because number one, we're still hovering around previous all-time high zones. So 2024 all-time highs. Um, we have a wick that looks very similar to this wick here that we had. back in August 2024. We are basically oversold on the weekly, which is very, very rare for Bitcoin to be. The last time Bitcoin was oversold on the weekly was back in June 2022 when we were at around 17,000. So even if we make one more low, which I don't, it might happen. I'm not going to say it won't happen. There is a chance we recover. Um, you know, maybe we pull back to 83, 84K, come to retest that trend line, which also intersects with this trend line we're watching here, this gray trend line, and then come down and actually retest retest from here, the 53 to 57K area. So that is still a possibility. I can't rule that out yet. And the only time I'm going to be able to fully rule that out is if we break above 91. Well, actually, no. What's that? That's going to be, yeah, about 95K. So if we break above that, then we could say that we have formed a substantial low. And probabilities, I would say, that we have formed a substantial low are relatively high, just based on obviously the length of the C wave that we have down. Now, I see this as a three-wave move, which means we still have room to continue upwards. Now, this purple line that I drew a couple of days ago, this is the bearish scenario. So this is a scenario where there is a chance that we get up to 100K, maybe just above 100K, retest this diagonal trend line here, so maybe in June, July, a little bit later, and then reject it, and then we come down and, come down to the, 30 to 40K area. That's the bearish scenario. I think 2027, in my personal opinion, is going to be where we do see a proper bear market. I think Bitcoin is going to run out of steam. I think the weekly RSI, this bearish divergence that we're seeing, is an indication that we are ultimately running out of steam. You can see here, lower lows, lower lows. So, yeah, lower lows here, lower highs, lower highs. So, we've got bearish divergence on the RSI on the weekly. And obviously we've had higher, high, higher, high, higher, high. So that's obviously a warning that we may get a corrective bounce. We may also, if we want to be really bullish, we may also break above that line again, make an all-time high, and then go into the bear market. That one is still possible. I think it's the lesser probable, in my opinion. I think that's probably got a 40% chance, and this bearish scenario here has got a 60% chance. But I think we just have to watch what happens here. This, again, as I said, this weekly candle closure would be quite nice if we did close above these previous candles. I think if we closed above 70K, even 70, yeah, maybe 73 and a half, 74K, that would be even better. But yeah, we have to obviously wait and see. We pretty much almost touched, yeah, we almost touched the 61.8, the golden pocket fib level at 57,800. but that wick only literally got to 60,000 on the cent, $60,000. That is the low that was made. But you know, this reaction that we've had to this area has been quite positive at the moment. So I'm not going to jinx it. I'm not going to, you know, say that we're just going to get rejected from here. And I'm quite happy to sit in the position that I'm sitting in at the moment. Um, Obviously, with Pengu, you know, we're negative on it. I'm negative on it. I'm not gonna DCA again because I pretty much DCA'd as much as I'm comfortable to DCA. But you know, it is what it is with that. It's a long-term hold anyway, so you know, I'm not crying about it. I just want to touch on USDT dominance because I was talking about this yesterday in the chat. I've cleaned it up a little bit because, you know, I think I talked about this on every single stream that, you know, we had this trend line that we broke out of, etc., etc. So I was warning of the dangers of USDT dominance looking bullish. Now, you can see that we've got this resistance at 9.4, 9.5%. We touched it here, and we touched it here, essentially. And we almost touched it again. That's why I'm saying I can't rule out that we won't have another low that might kind of take us all the way up there, and we might see the 53 to 57K area, and then we reject, and then we start our alt season. That's the thing. I can't say that we've got there yet, but the reaction is good here in the sense that USDT dominance pulled back quite a fair bit when it got very near to that resistance area. And the last time USDT dominance was in these regions, I mean, I know this was when Bitcoin was at 17K. So this is all positive in a sense. This is all positive. We can see that USDT dominance ultimately has been ranging for the past almost 4 years, right? This is essentially just a range here. That's pretty much it, and we may come back down and, you know, ultimately continue like this for however long until the range is broken either to the downside or to the upside. So this, I think, is the range that we've basically been playing in for, well, quite a substantial number of years now. I think almost 5 years. You know, so this is pretty much it. And as I said, you know, we could come back down and then retest the range lows, etc. So I think that would be positive, obviously, if we come back down, because then that will give a chance for Bitcoin and the altcoins to thrive a little bit more than what we've seen already in the past year or so. Right, looking at Ethereum, let me just make sure that this is accurate. So there's a couple of ways that you can look at this. So one of the important points that I'm going to make is that if we take the low to the high, we have reacted exactly at the 88.6% fib. Now, for me, that is the absolute last chance for us to not break this upward trend. Because I could tell you, if we broke this 88.6% fib, we did briefly, but I mean a sustained break. And if we broke through this trend line, this turquoise, this blue trend line, there is a very, very big possibility that we would go all the way down and retest these lows here, around $1,000 for Ethereum. So I'd like to see this area hold. I would like to think that Ethereum has found the low. You know, we are where we are. I'm still technically in it. Um, this is all weekly stop loss that I've changed all of this to because um, I kind of had a feeling that we would get one final flush, uh, which is why it was a shame that I was sleeping because I wanted to add a final DCA, but it is what it is. It's fine. But yeah, again, you can see I've taken the length of the A wave and placed it kind of pretty much. You can see it's pretty much bang on with Ethereum. It's bang on with Ethereum. The A wave is literally the same length as the C wave. You can see that. So for me, I would like to think that Ethereum has found the low. I mean, we should at this point see a rally, and I would say first confirmation that we've bottomed. And let's zoom in on the daily a little bit. Yeah, I mean, first confirmation, really, we would have to get back above the point of control here at around $3,100, $3,200. Better would be above the high of the B wave, which is $3,300. So if we get back above here, then, say we have a recovery like that and we actually break above this level here, then at least we can say, okay, maybe there is a chance that we're going to possibly retest the $5,000 area, previous all-time highs, maybe even go to that $6,000-$7,000 region for Ethereum that I was eyeing for the bull market top. And I would absolutely love for that prediction to come true. I think we have to really wait and see at this point, but there's not really any confirmation I can get rid of that fib. There's not any confirmation at the moment, is the problem. But ultimately, as I said, with Bitcoin, this is still an ABC down. This is a three-wave move down. So until we actually get a five-wave move, so if we did see something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a three-wave correction, then we can expect lower, right? But until then, until we have a five-wave move, we only have a three-wave, and three-wave leaves the door open for us to go much higher, okay? Also, we can see this as an ascending triangle. So, could always do something like that. But then again, obviously, the worst case scenario is something like that. But ascending triangles are normally a good thing. We do normally see a breakout to the upside, but when we do sometimes see a deviation. Something like that. So there's a lot of different things that can happen here. I think we need to focus on obviously the current scenario, and the current scenario is just waiting to see what the weekly close is going to be like. I won't be taking any new trades at the moment. I think we're in quite enough. H bar, really, really good trade. Honestly, like very, very happy about this because we literally DCA'd at like precisely the right time. Our average was really, really good. And you can see from our entry, we are basically up 20% unleveraged, which I think is very good for basically not even 24 hours. So that's definitely a positive. I'm still looking at higher for H bar. At the bare minimum, I'd like to see it retest these previous local highs here at around 13 cents. We might kind of do that in the next few weeks. So if I expect February to be a good month, and I expect us to possibly test previous highs here. In March, we might get a rejection, but then I think March is going to be the deciding month, in my opinion. I think it's either going to be we're going to just go lower, or we're going to end up breaking out of this trend line and then possibly rallying all the way up to around 28 cents. So I think February is going to be a good month. I think, we've still got a good 2-3 weeks. ahead of us. I think March might be correction, very minor correction, some consolidation, and then hopefully between April and June, July, we get some form of alt season. But again, this all depends on Bitcoin holding key areas, right? So I'm just going to jump back to Bitcoin really quickly. For me, as I said, the area I'm watching is basically for us to hold between 53 and 57K. If Bitcoin doesn't hold 53K, for me, there's nothing at this point. There's nothing to stop us from going all the way down here. Like absolutely nothing. For me, that's kind of the line in the sand for, we're gonna go to 32 to 38K. That is if Bitcoin doesn't hold 53K, because there's really not much. The order book, in my opinion, is quite thin between that zone. Um, so for me, this is kind of like this is a key area. Um, I think we really have to hold this area if we want to continue to, number one, at least see a corrective larger B wave bounce to 100K or so. But also, if we wanted to make an all-time high. Now, I've taken it off at the moment, but I had a target between 132 and 150K for the bull run. That was my target. We didn't reach that yet. We still might reach that. But as I said, it's got a 40% probability at the moment, in my opinion, whereas the high B wave that we can get to 100K is the slightly higher probabilistic scenario at the moment. Now, I'm just going to go through the trades we're in very quickly. So I think I mentioned for Link, just to set stops to, trim the DCA at before entry, which is basically 9.26, 9.27 for some dollars. We got to $9 at the moment, so I'm hoping that we push a little bit higher just to kind of de-risk a little bit. So then if we do go lower, we can at least DCA and lower our average. But I mean, this is still valid for me. You know, Link kind of went a little bit lower than where my, prediction was in terms of where my stops are, my 4 hour stops, but um, you know, it's not a terrible thing because we can see that the low that Link made was pretty much in line with this low down here. So I mean, if we really want to study order blocks, this order block has been filled. When we had this wick down on the 10th of October, we didn't fill that order block down here. Came close, didn't fill it. Now we've filled it. So, we could go lower, but it's not a higher probability that we'll go lower. I think we are going to make a recovery. I think at the very least we're going to recover twice the current price, maybe slightly less. I think that's very likely. And I would like to see Link get back above this weekly trend line that it's been holding since basically COVID. And if we do get something like this, where we could just say that, this was a deviation on the weekly and we push back and get back above this larger triangle structure and then push back out, then yeah, I still think my prediction for Link to go to $50 to $75 is valid at this point. But I would like to see us break through the previous high that we had here locally at it's gonna be like around this area, basically about $14, $15. I think if we get above $15, there is a very, very high probability that we will at least test previous all-time highs at $50. I would definitely be confident enough to say that. Let's quickly jump to Solana. So Again, Solana kind of, went quite a considerable amount lower, not hugely lower, but a few percent lower than my stop loss. Obviously this is not a hard stop loss; it's a soft stop loss. Um, I kept it relatively tight, but we did come down to again kind of fill this order block here, which was at around $68. So, and again, I would like to say that this is a low. This is a substantial low from Solana. Again, we measure this as an A wave. We place it to the top of the B wave, and you can see pretty much again like spot on, really. Same length. So it would be ideal, in my personal opinion, it would be very, very ideal that all of these altcoins have formed a low, and at the very least we either retest the trend line here on Solana, which could be at like $140 to $150, or we push past that and go to all-time highs. At the bare minimum, retest previous highs at around $250. So that's kind of the main goal here. Like definitely first retest 150 or 147. Next target would be 250, and then obviously all-time highs would be at around $400. That would be the icing on the cake if we got something like that. I'll go through a few other popular ones that I like to keep an eye on. So Doge, it's quite funny because I hadn't looked at Doge for quite some time, and I had this line that I uh, had put down here because we had the previous lows here. So you can see Doge actually has reacted to the previous low at around 8 cents. Sorry, not 8. Yeah, it is 8 cents. Yeah, 8 cents. Um, I'm not a massive fan of a double bottom structure, but this kind of works. Um, I think it would be really nice if we got above this uh, turquoise trend line, because that's kind of for me, that's kind of like the line that we've been testing a few times. It's acted as resistance and support on multiple occasions. And again, with Doge, I see this as a three-wave move down, right? I see it as an ABC structure to the downside. A wave, and then B wave up to 30 cents, and then C wave down. C wave down perfectly aligns with the A wave. You're seeing a pattern, right? There should be a pattern that's quite obvious to see at this point. Um, so again, would be really, really perfect if this was the low. And the more altcoins I look at, the more confident I am that we have formed at least a temporary low, even if we, as I said, we retest, um, let's just as an example, draw a fib, right? And at the very least, we retest like 20 cents or something on Doge. At the very least, at least we can do that, right? Which is, a 2x from here, and then we make new lows. This is, um, this is a possibility, okay? But for now, I think we definitely have a local low. That's just my personal opinion. I know people are going to be trying to short everything at the moment. I think the time for shorting was basically a couple of weeks ago. Um, I think that boat has kind of passed at the moment. There's quite a high risk to short. Um, I'm not going to be shorting anything. I'm just going to be accumulating. So for me, definitely not the time to short. That's just my personal opinion. Um, yeah. Sui, um, pretty much if I adjust this trend line, yeah, I mean it's pretty much it's quite funny if you look at Sui, it's pretty much uh retested this trend line. Now, if you want to be really bullish on Sui, um, you could say that we've got this kind of megaphone pattern. I think that's the technical name for it. Um, So, you know, $15 SUI, possible, right? Maybe not highly realistic. Um, I wouldn't want to bet on it too much. There's different ways you could draw this trend line as well. At the moment, it's only really got two touch points. If we kind of really wanted to make it fit, we could do something like that. But I'm not a massive fan of uh, going through candles, so that might be more accurate. Um, but at the very least, again, we should get a move up to at least $2. Better just over $3. Maybe to retest this trend line, maybe to retest the previous lows down here. That is also quite likely on SUI. So, you know, optimistically, I'm seeing everything basically up from here. I mean, if we look at XRP, XRP had a really good day today from what I remember. Yeah, I mean, XRP has moved like a shit ton. Um, what's that? Like 30%. Basically, XRP had a 30% move today, unleveraged, by the way, completely unleveraged, which I think was insane. Um, and I think XRP personally, even though I'm not like a huge fan of it, I think it's going to do quite well if we do have an altcoin season. I think we will get to possibly even $5 for XRP, at the very least $4. But I think XRP is going to have a really good run. So, um, and you can see, I mean, let's not forget about the RSI. RSI on the weekly, basically very, very close to oversold. I think we can probably look at quite a few altcoins, and you can see very close to oversold. We're going to see similar patterns on most altcoins, almost oversold, pretty much oversold. Solana is definitely going to be pretty much, yeah, oversold. And what has happened every single time an altcoin has been oversold on the weekly? You can see here. Solana was $11, oversold again, $9, dropped slightly, but look what happened. We basically rallied $300. So we went from $9 or $10 to $300 based on the fact that weekly RSI was oversold. So for me, this is an opportunity to buy. Not financial advice, but I think people would be crazy not to be buying right now because this is a time to accumulate. This is the smartest time to accumulate. Your RSI is oversold on the weekly. You get RSIs oversold on the 30-minute and the 1 hour time frame all the time, right? But oversold on the weekly, that's like super rare. That happened the last time on Solana in December 2022. So that's like 3 years ago. So for me, this is a golden opportunity. Even though we've broken out of this trend line, we've broken the bullish structure slightly. I still think that we could at least retest all-time highs, even higher, possibly. It's not out of the question. It's not out of the question for Solana to do something like this. Not out of the question. Um, and let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance because, yeah, I drew this last time. I could probably remove that trend line. I do see Bitcoin dominance dropping down to at least the 50, 51, 52% level. I really, really do see this as a very real possibility that we drop down to this level here. If we drop down to this level here, altcoins are going to go crazy. And I think Bitcoin dominance is definitely running out of steam. And remember, when Bitcoin is stable and just ranging, that's like the best time for alts. Bitcoin dominance drops, money moves from Bitcoin into altcoins. Altcoins go crazy. That is pretty much your alt season, right? So, um, yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Uh, Ree's asking, when are we getting $10? So I'd like to think quite some time because I'd like to see an all-time high sol first so that Pengu can run super super high. Like you know what? Like for me, I would be super happy if Pengu literally ran to like 20 like 0.026. Even better it would be like, 0.03. But if we literally got into this fib zone at all, I would be super, super happy because that for me is like a 2x or a 2.5x. Um, and with what I've put into Pengu at the moment, that would be some nice dollar. So I would definitely like to see that. Um, and it's a decent possibility because, you know, this is to me just looks like a very big triangle, you know. Um, I think obviously with triangles there's indecision, we can go up, we can go down, but with triangles normally it's pretty predictable what's going to happen in between until there's a breakout. And I think it is pretty likely that we're at least going to get a good rally, possibly to 3 cents. So Pengu to 3 cents would be super nice because that's a 3x, and I think we'd all be really happy if we're holding it. So yeah, but no new trades at the moment. I mean, I think our current trade's looking really nice at the moment. Like H bar basically has moved up massively. It was like 20% or something crazy. Obviously, Bitcoin was still in the red because it missed our final DCA, but that's okay. That's okay. I mean, we got to 71,500. Um, I need to double check my average. I can't remember what it is, like 73 or something like that. 74, maybe even higher. But yeah, I think I'm not too worried because for me, I feel like we have got a local bottom, that's for sure. Even if we went lower, I'm not going to be too sad about it because I'll just simply tell others as well to market enter a little bit on top at this point. But yeah, I mean, I think at least we're going to target around the 95 to 98 100K area, which is going to put us in profit anyway, so I'm not too concerned about that. Do I have Aave on my watch list? You know what? I used to have, to be honest, I used to have so many coins. I used to have AVAX. Like, I used to have so many coins. I mean, you can see, like, I've not looked at this chart in so long. My fibs are a different color. That's how long I've not looked at it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would say Aave's the same, right? Like, literally haven't touched this chart in like centuries, and I had this blue line at basically around $100, and it's come and retested it. So this was pretty much my support level for Aave long time ago. Um, Probably don't need these anymore, but yeah, I mean, we were pretty much at a buy level. Like $100 was basically our buy zone for Aave. Um, I don't know how much this fib has changed. This fib has probably not hugely changed, to be fair. I mean, next level of resistance is going to be the $140 region, which you can see we had these previous lows here. So at the very least, we could get a rally from, well, I mean, if we were going by $100 yesterday, that's like a 50% increase almost. 40%, 50%. So I think we do get a really decent rally on Aave, and I think, it's going to be similar to a lot of other coins. Um, Draw that trend line, that's our resistance. So, you know, I would say February, we have a really good couple of weeks, possibly rally to 140. This is all obviously probabilities, that nothing is guaranteed in life, right? But just statistically, there is a good chance that we rally to 140. If we break above this line, I think there's a very, very good chance that we can work our way up all the way back to $400. At the very least, maybe around the 50% fib level here, just before we crashed in October 10th at around $235. Um, so yeah, that's Aave. AVAX as well. I mean, AVAX I hadn't looked at in ages. Last time it was $20, but it's probably like half that. Yeah, it's like $9. That's crazy. Um, so it's funny because it has a very, very similar structure to Link in a way. You can see that we basically were in this massive triangle for like years, like 5 years. Um, we broke out of it, um, you know, but I mean, AVAX is a little bit hard to say. I mean, it's obviously massively, massively oversold on the daily and obviously pretty much oversold on the weekly. So, um, I mean, ultimately, if you want to look at it on like the much higher time frame, this is still technically a three-wave move down. But I mean, if we see it like that, technically AVAX could go lower if we wanted to have it the same length as the A wave, possibly even to like $3. So I don't. I wouldn't really want to see AVAX do that. So there is a chance again that we get possibly a retest of this trend line at $23, $24. That would be a 3x from here, and then possibly make, uh, well, not make new lows, but at least test possibly even COVID lows. So I would say that realistically, a realistic target for most alts would be a 3x for this bull run, for this alt season if we get it. I think that's going to be a realistic target for most altcoins before probably most of them die, or some of them just make new lows and then we're in a bear market and they may survive. So I think that's my current prediction for basically how everything is going to go. I'm quietly optimistic for February. I'm going to just sit back and enjoy the next couple of weeks. And yeah, I mean, if there's anything new, I'll obviously give you guys a shout. But I think, we're in decent positions at the moment. Obviously, some are negative, but I'm obviously going to say if we're going to DCA or not. But I think for now, we'll just kind of sit tight. H bar kind of made up for quite a decent amount of that. Solana is also in profits. We trimmed on that as well, which was nice. So, we had a really good month in January. February's been a little bit rocky, obviously, with how we've started the past week. But yeah, let's just hope for better next 2, 3 weeks. And as always, capital preservation, risk management, that's like the most important thing. And I'm always in the chats if you guys have any questions to ask me. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope that this was a useful stream. I am gonna upload not last week's, but the week before, and last week's, and this week's stream. So I will definitely try and do that tonight because I am like so behind with like videos. But I will upload them onto YouTube like I normally do, and I will post when I've uploaded them. Just if you guys want to, play back a coin that I've mentioned, study what I've spoken about, etc., etc. So yeah, thank you everyone who's here. I know Sharky missed it. You know what? To be fair, it's pretty late. It is pretty late for him. He needs to sleep. He's like he lives on this chat, so he definitely needs a rest. Um, but yeah, I'll upload it for everyone, and then whoever's obviously not here, they can watch that in their own time. So yeah, have a good evening. Enjoy your weekend, everyone, and I'll see you soon. Peace out.